Mother, will you give me a moment? I need to talk to someone. Hello, I was just talking with my mother. I'm dreadfully sorry for the delay. Oh, dear heavens, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Augusta Ada King Noel, Countess of Lovelace, but most people just call me Ada Lovelace. I'm sure you want to hear my story. Here's how I got to where I am now. Growing up as a child, I was given many tutors and teachers to help me learn my mathematics and science while my mother was away. She always wanted to supposedly curb my imagination since she did not want me ending up like my father, Lord Byron, a famous poet. I never met my father as a child, or ever, since he left my mother and me when I was only a baby. And 2 months after my parents legally separated, he left the country, promising never to see me or my mother again. I grew up living in my grandparents' house since my mother was always away. And while she was away, I had time to become very fond of my nurse. And when my mother came to visit, I preferred my nurse's company over hers, and my mother did not like that. She became very jealous. So she fired my nurse out of jealousy. I was devastated since I loved my nurse dearly. My mother hired no more nurses since she did not want me loving them more than her ever again. So instead she left a list of rules for my grandparents to follow. And then when I was 7, my grandmother died, and my mother inherited her estate and title, and it made her, and since I'm her daughter, me, very wealthy. And when I was 9, my father died, and according to his valet, his last words were a lament that he had never gotten to see me. And from what I've heard, he even wrote a letter that described what he thought I would be like, and painted a portrait of what he thought I would look like. He only did those judging on what he thought I would be like because of him and my mother. I'd never seen the portrait or read the letter, but I doubt they're any good. When I was 11, my mother decided to take me on a tour of the country. We toured the country for 2 whole years, and while we were away, I created an intricate design for a flying machine that would work if built. But to my dismay, my mother was not impressed. Instead, she was worried that it was some sort of creative mind connecting to my father's behavior, and as I said before, she did not want me ending up like my father. I was very disappointed since I was only a child and it would work, and to me, it was just normal, but not to my mother. Here's how the real story begins. When I was 17, I met Charles Babbage at a party. He was displaying his new machine, the difference engine. He is an inventor, and his difference engine could calculate subtraction, addition, division, and multiplication problems. It was incredible. It was rather large, though. It consisted of many pillars with numbers all around in many rows, in various rows. And you could put any problem in and it would solve it. And while most people just looked at the machine in awe and then passed on, I looked at it for simply a few minutes, then completely understood how it worked. Babbage was very impressed with my comprehension of his machine, since I had never had any interaction with it ever in my life. But then the British government gave him money to build a new, larger, improved version of the difference engine. And he was nearly done after 14 years of constant designing and rebuilding. And when he was almost done, but then he decided to quit on the engine and pursue a new idea, the analytical engine. The analytical engine was a more advanced calculating machine. It was very similar to the difference engine in its purpose, but different in many ways, because instead of just doing the problem for you, it would put the problem out in a different way where it would still be the same problem, but the person using the engine would still be able to understand the problem, but in a simpler form. So I was sure the government would help pay for it, but just to be sure, I had written copious notes on its power. And to be honest, I did not write them all myself. Another man wrote them, and I simply edited and nearly doubled in length the notes. I had written on it what it was capable of doing, and even more, I wrote of what it could do that Babbage did not plan for it to do. He had designed his own engine, but did not know what its full power could be, and I could. I was sure my notes would convince the British, but sadly they did not fund. After all, they had spent who knows how much money on the difference engine, but it was never completed. So I guess I can understand, but it would still have been nice. Later on, I asked Babbage to tutor me, since all the other tutors I tried were not as far ahead as I was. Any questions I asked, they did not know the answer to, so no tutor was good enough for me. So I decided I would ask Babbage to tutor me, but sadly, he declined. But we still became very good friends, and still are to this day. And as I have said before, I do not have the best relationship with my mother, but now seeing how it's helped me gotten to where I am, like where I am now, having written so many notes. Oh, and I forgot to mention, a little after I wrote my notes, they were published, but they were not published under my name. They were published under my initials because the publishers did not think that a woman was capable of such smarts. I was fine with it. I was just proud to have my notes published. But back to my relationship with my mother. As I said before, it's not the best, but if it weren't for her limiting my imagination, I would have never written those notes and got them published. I never would have met Babbage. So even though I'm not close to her, I'm glad to have had her as a mother. But, oh dear, I seem to have lost track of time. I have a meeting to attend to with Babbage, but before I go and prepare, do you have any questions for me? Hey, get off there! Oh, hello. You're wondering how I got onto this wretched island? I don't know why I'm on this island. I'm not even sick. Well, at least I don't have any typhoid symptoms. Well, it all started out when I was in New York City, like I am now. I was hired to cook for a wealthy family that was on vacation in Oyster Bay. They go by the last name Warren. The wife and the husband had 4 children and 5 maids. After a few days of the vacation, I decided to make my famous peach ice cream. I could tell everybody loved it, even the maids. But after a few days, one of the daughters got sick. It was horrible. She had a fever and welts all over. I don't know what her temperature was, but I'm guessing it was very high, because she looked much like a tomato. Then the sickness started to spread like weeds in a garden. That's when I knew I should leave, before I got sick. When I got home, I started thinking how odd it was that the same thing seemed to happen at every house that I cooked at. Just then, I heard a knock on my door. I opened it. There stood a man, and he said, "Ma'am, I was wondering if I could get a stool, blood, and urine sample." My first instinct was to grab a fork and try to stab him, and that's exactly what I did. Well, and with a bit of cursing. A few days later, I read in the newspaper that his name was Dr. George Sober, and he was certainly wanting to be famous. Then I read that he thought I was the cause of all those typhoid outbreaks. Unbelievable. The last part of the article said that he was planning to come back to my house, but this time with authorities. So I got an escape plan. The next day they came. By them, I made the authorities. So I ran next door. And I got into the closet, and the nice maids that worked at that house stacked ash cans against the door so nobody could get in and nobody could get out. The maids told me not to come out and to stay in there because they are coming. Just then the authorities barged in. and they started searching the house, even after the maids told them I wasn't there. You might be wondering why I do hate doctors so much. Well, it all started out where I was born, in Ireland, on September 23rd, 1869, and where my mother gifted me my beautiful name, Mary Malone. When I was younger, people, or murderers, would convince kids something was wrong with them, murder them, and sell their organs on the black market. I immigrated from Ireland when I was 14. From there, I got a job as a cook in New York City, and that's where I started my career. Of course, now I'm on North Brothers Island. Well, I never passed, so I'm in the closet. And the authorities were just about to leave when they found me. Apparently, part of my skirt was sticking out. I was ready to spend my whole life in there if necessary, and I did spend 9 hours in there. I got arrested, and I went to court. The judge asked me why I didn't just give them what they wanted. I stayed silent. Then Dr. Suber rudely interrupted and said, "Well, all you have to do is give us your gallbladder." Why would I ever give them my gallbladder? I mean, what even is that? So I got plopped on this island for the first time. Thankfully, I got off after 3 years. They made me a deal if I never cooked again, I could get off. Can I tell you a secret? I'd never planned on keeping that promise. Although, I had to sign a contract and take an oath. So, I worked at the laundromat for the most boring 3 years of my life. So, I decided I would sneak into Sloan Maternity, the local hospital. Took a job application, signed it out. I got the job. I signed in as Mary Brown. Oh, such a clever name if I do so myself. I remember that day so clearly. Mind you, this is 1915. So I got straight to work. I started making my famous peach ice cream and giving it to women who were pregnant or women who had just given birth. After a few weeks, I started to see people disappear. I was minding my business walking down the hallway when I saw pesky old Dr. Sober. I tried to swerve the other way, but he saw me. And he arrested me again. And I got put on the island again. He told me that I got 25 people sick and killed 2 of them. I told you to get off the flower beds. Well, before I go, do you have any questions for me?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am an ethics teacher, woman, and peace activist, and the owner of the Hull House, a settlement house in Chicago, Illinois. I've had lots of struggles as an ethics teacher and just as a woman. One of my biggest predicaments has been that people, especially men, tell others that I, Jane Addams, am not revealing original thoughts about ethics, and that I am just a student, an observer of those men. However, I know for a fact that I have gathered my own significant opinions on the world around me and how people act and live. And these convictions have come from years of exploring situations and interacting with multitudes of less fortunate people and those around me. I was always an adventurous child. I loved to go out in the night with my stepbrother and explore the woods. One night, we saw an owl's nest on the cliffside. We were curious, so I lowered my stepbrother down the side of the cliff to spy on the owl. He was so close to the nest. I was buzzing with excitement and had a huge smile on my face. My curiosity and adventurism continued into adulthood. However, I became more focused on the situations of my fellow people. So, when I was older, I traveled to Europe with my friend, Ellen G. Starr. While in Europe, we saw the very first settlement house, Tony B. Hall. Settlement house is a living center in a poor community. It gives education to children and jobs to adults and families. In England, it was part of a social movement that's goal is to bring together the rich and the poor of society. Tony B. Hall was established in London's East End by Samuel and Henrietta Barnett. The Barnetts brought university students from the elite social class to live and work alongside the underprivileged poor. This was supposed to help them rise out of poverty. You see, I grew up wealthy, so I had never experienced the same kind of poverty that I witnessed on my trip to Europe. We passed villagers begging for rotten fruit just to have food to put on the table for their families. I knew the same kinds of poverty existed in my own country and community. I remembered how when I was younger, I told my father I wanted to help others, when I learned that not everyone was growing up in the same way that I was. I mean, after all, not everyone's father is friends with Abraham Lincoln. Even though my mother died when I was only 2 years old, I live a very privileged life. London's Tony B. Hall inspired me. I became determined to establish a settlement house in one of Chicago's poorest neighborhoods. So, when Ellen and I returned to America, we set out to search for America's very first settlement house. We decided on the Hull House on 800 Halsted Street, an ancient mansion built by a man named Charles Hull. It is in a poor community where there are a lot of immigrants who need help getting established in their new country. As much as I would like to say that America is everything people hope for it to be, I can't, because it's not. Many people struggle, especially those who are new to this country, as well as those from different backgrounds and ethnicities. Our laws and systems are not fair and just for all. America is in great need of changing, and the only way to get change is to fight for it. I am here fighting for change, for equality among women and men of all races. I do not believe, broadly speaking, that women are better than men. We have not wrecked railroads, nor corrupted legislators, nor done many unholy things that men have done. But then we must remember that we have not had the chance. I believe that there is a better way to solve things than bloodshed, but with peace and agreement. We must turn to peace and not war. We all must believe that there is a better way of handling things than killing one another like savages. World War I must come to an end. We must stop the bloodshed and hatred. True peace is not merely the absence of war. It is the presence of justice. True peace is a virtue we all hold within ourselves. We must rise up and speak our voice. I am the president of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom and the founder of the Women's Peace Party. These groups of strong, passionate women are the women who are going to change the world for the better. We are going to have the right to vote and every other right that men have. We are going to have a female president and a strong, independent woman leading this world one day. Oh my, I have some matters to attend to in the classroom. Do you have any questions before I go?
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Could you be mine? Would you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you, so let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, I might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? Would you be? Please, would you be? Would you be my neighbor? Hello, neighbor. It's nice to see you again. Today, I'm talking about bullying. I hope you're not bullied. But sometimes the people that are bullied grow up to be very important people, very nice people. Sometimes they're big and strong. Sometimes they're very smart. Sometimes they're just nice. My friend Fred asked me to talk about this today. Because Fred, he was bullied when he was younger. They called him Fat Freddy. Oh, it wasn't a very nice name, though, was it? He didn't cry or get angry, though a lot of people would get angry. He decided to swim every single day, 20 minutes a day. Do you know how long that is? It's just about as long as our time together, isn't it? Nobody called him Fat Freddy anymore. But nobody wanted to be his friend either. Nobody knew that he had a love for so many things, including puppets. Now I want to show you something. These are some friends of mine. See this bag? Can you guess what's inside this bag? Well, there are puppets in here, of course. Many puppets. They come in all shapes and sizes, big and small ones. Here's a puppet. His name's Mr. Owl. I like Mr. Owl. He can blink like this, move his head back and forth like that. But we also have another friend in here. You know him very well. His name is Daniel. Daniel the baby tiger. Well, Daniel seems very shy. But he is a very good friend of Fred's. He wasn't there when Fred was being bullied, was he? He wasn't there when Fred went to puppet camp either, where he learned to use one of these. This here is a very big puppet. You know what type of puppet this is? Oh, he seems to be tangled up. There we go. This is called a marionette puppet. He can walk like this and move his head up and down like this. We call him Mary. Mary's a very silly guy. He falls a lot. But he wasn't there either. Nobody was there for Fred when he was young. Until one day when he was in high school, almost all grown up. And one of the well-known kids, one of the popular kids, got hurt playing football. Got hurt very bad. And Fred was told to bring him homework every day. And that kid soon found out that Fred was a very nice young man who loved a lot of things, including kids and puppets like these. And they became friends. And soon, his friends became Fred's friends, and their friends became their friends, and moved on and on until he was friends with all 11,111 people in that little town. Till he moved. He moved away to New York City to follow one of his dreams. He joined NBC, the television company, and he started out bringing people coffee. Do you know what coffee is? It's that drink that your mom and dad probably drink at home. It's for people that work very hard. And he brought that to people every day. And not a lot of them were very nice to him. Except for one, who thanked Fred every time that he got the coffee that he asked for. And he thanked him. And when Fred became a bigger person in the industry, Well, Fred started doing that too. He started being really nice to people whenever they got him coffee. And oftentimes would just get the coffee himself. He had his own television show soon, called The Children's Corner. He could take his love of puppets and his love of teaching and his love of children, combine them all together, make his own television show. It didn't last very long though, which is very sad. But he got to achieve his dream, didn't he? And so can you. Just because you're bullied, just because you're made fun of, doesn't mean you can't achieve your dreams. And yes, it sounds like Fred didn't really achieve his dream. His show was then taken away. But he started a new one. Yeah. He got to come in every morning and put on a red sweater and blue tennis shoes. And he got to sing. He loved to sing. And he wanted me to tell you that he's very proud of all of you. Because you're adults now, aren't you? With kids of your own. Yeah. And just remember, it's you I like. Not the things you wear, not the way you do your hair, but it's you I like. One's way down deep inside you, like your toys, they're just beside you. But it's you I like, it's you yourself, it's you I like. Well, I have to say goodbye now. I hope to see you again very soon. Alright, bye-bye now.